Good morning and welcome to Planet Althistory. Today I'm gonna discuss the question, what if humans never existed? What if humans never existed? We are not going to discuss what if humans would be extinct, but what if humans never existed? So this means that there would be some time where, for instance, some kind of humanoid would never exist, one of our forefathers, which we still have no clue about, and something would just randomly happen to it that it will just die off. Evolution would take a totally different way, different path. Now, we as humans, we always think and we always imagine that animals are pretty much stupid. But let me tell you that this is very far from the truth. Look, guys, birds, for instance, they are able to use tools, and they even pass knowledge from one generation to another. The same can be applied to chimpanzees, for instance. They do the same when they want to eat ants, for instance. What about self-awareness? Some animals recognize themselves and they will start like grooming. Strange new mark, which is a sign of self-awareness. And actually we found evidence of this in the great apes, for instance, and even an elephant. They were able to recognize themselves in a mirror. Speaking of elephants, they were able to perform simple mathematics tasks. Elephants, they have performed simple arithmetic stuff, and monkeys, they can count, and they are able to show some grasp of quantitative values, which they use, for instance, to grow the fungi that they have inside their nest. And chimps, they have an exceptional memory for remembering numbers. And if we take some of our more stupid counterparts, the apes, they are even better to do that than our stupid counterparts. Now you will tell me, okay, what about the language? We as humans, we are able to talk, we are able to communicate ideas through a written system. Yes, I will include writing also in the language. And in here I have to say I will exclude writing as for now, and I will just focus on this vocal aspect of language. And if we look strictly into it, we see that animals, they are able to communicate in a way. Maybe they are not able to pass abstract thinking in this communication, but simple things they are able to communicate. I mean, otherwise it would not be possible for animals to form some kind of social group, or to have like even sex between each other, or to even keep their babies to themselves. It would just not be possible. So there is some kind of language that animals have. Yes, it's a very primitive one, but there are some more complex forms of animal communication and language. Those are the whale songs, the bee dances, and the color change communication of the Caribbean reef squids, for instance. Then there have also been attempts, for instance, to teach primates the basic human language, often through the sign language. Coco comes there to my mind. I'm sure some of you know who Coco the ape is. And although it's still very much debated if those primates have a true idea what they are saying or what they understand, we can prove that they are able to at least use correctly sign language, and it actually makes somehow sense how they use it. Now, those are very important aspects, because we have to understand that intelligence for us humans is something where we like to differentiate ourselves from animals, and in this intelligence we include ideas such as self-awareness, the language, and also the ability to have abstract thinking. Now, abstract thinking is the one thing I can say for sure that animals might not have it, or at least we are not able to prove that. Abstract thinking is, let's say, if I now talk about God, for instance, is an abstract idea because we cannot see it, we cannot touch it, we can not taste it. It's, it's just around, it's an idea, but we understand which idea is meant by that. Whereas when they say, water, we can understand it just by looking at it. Or just imagine yourself as a child. You probably had difficulties to understand abstract ideas by those times because, well, you were a child, and mostly child books, they work with images. So you have an image, and then under it you have words. And the more you grow, the more you start to understand those things. And you get also, since even a child age, yes, in a way you also get it, an abstract idea. Now, we as humans, we are very different for a few reasons. And I will discuss a very specific reason. An animal faces, let's say, 2 life or death struggles in its quest to reach reproductive age. It should not starve to death, and it must avoid being eaten by predators. If both of these conditions are easy to accomplish for the animal, then intelligence is not needed to survive. It might be very convenient for the animal to have it, but it is not necessary to do so. If, let's say, another animal has a lot of plentiful food resources and it has no difficulties to get to those and has actually no threat, then there's also no point in being smart, right? And after all, a complex brain requires a ton of energy, and there is no point in wasting food on the brain if it's not actually used for survival. So if at one point an animal doesn't have the necessity to be intelligent enough to survive, the brain might not develop more in a complex way, then the brain will use less, and as a result the animal will actually eat less as well. So it's like a spiral that never ends. But let's say a situation in which a vertebrate species is faced with suddenly scarce food sources or an increase in dangerous predators is the most obvious way to kickstart the evolution of intelligence. Indeed, the collapse of key lush regions in ancient Africa millions of years ago is likely what drove the divergence of humans from chimpanzees. As our ancestors, they had to employ more strategic thinking to find the longer plentiful resources. And this is basically the one argument which we will have to take into account if we want to create the new intelligent species that might dominate our Earth. So, I made a short list of the most likely candidates which could achieve that. And in there I chose the dolphins, the whales, apes, elephants, birds, ants, bees. I put them in the same category. Between the dolphins and the whales, I think that the whales, they might have the upper hand simply for the reason that they know how to communicate in a more complex way, and this is done by singing. Their singing abilities, they are so strong that it can even be heard until a few kilometers, for instance. The big disadvantage they have is, of course, that they are fairly big, but this in itself also proves to be an advantage to them because they don't really face many predators. So they are pretty much up on the food chain, but then again, since they are pretty much up in the food chain, they don't have to flee from so many predators, which as a result will also not really kickstart the evolution of intelligence. Except if for some reason there will be a change of the environment where the plentiful of resources they cannot be found anymore, and where they have like to become maybe smaller, or where they have like to go to different parts of the ocean that they could not fit in, let's say, then in there they might have some kind of evolution of the intelligence. However, the main problem they will have for this is that the sea is not really a good environment. In the sea, you are not really able to cultivate other fishes, because if you want to do that, you need actually to keep them in the net, let's say, or also in places which are closed. And as the whale and the dolphins are not really able to manipulate some of their body parts, this might prove to be a very difficult task to do. The only thing they might be able to grow is just the algae, so that's the only thing they might be able to grow. As for the apes, I will leave the apes as for now aside because they are just too similar to humans, and I think it might be very boring to actually discuss the apes in that sense. But if you have an idea what apes might change or how apes could evolve differently, you can just leave a comment and I will be happy to read about it. Elephants are the most interesting one. Despite their body, they have very good chances to dominate this planet. They have the big advantage that they can manipulate their trunk. And this is very important because it will allow them to use certain things in a different way. Moreover, elephants are able to accustom themselves to many different environments. And I give you one example. Just look at the elephants in Namibia. They live in a total desert and they pretty much survive without any difficulties. Of course, during the millions and millions of years, the bodies, they will change, of course. That's very clear. However, due to the trunk, which might even evolve in a more sophisticated way, already the ability that they have a very good memory, that they have a very basic understanding maybe of even arithmetics, this might give them a very good chance to dominate the planet. The only thing they might need to evolve is maybe an ability to somehow speak, which maybe they might be doing through some kind of sign language with that trunk. That's a possibility. Now birds have some kind of intelligence different from us humans, where they are able to see something and they see it works and they pass this knowledge to their kids. I just give this example that was, I think, studied in the UK, where the milkman, he put some bottles of milk, and then suddenly birds, they opened it just by using their pack. However, I'm very convinced that the bird has this problem of not being able to manipulate too much their bodies, so even they can fly and even they have like their wings, I don't think that a wing is enough to change too much in the environment, and thus the bird might still be behind of the elephant in this sense. Now you might be asking yourself why I was even including ants and bees. Yes, ants and bees, they have individually a very different system or brain system than us. They might be a lot more stupid, of course, but when they are working as a collective, they show a very big sign of intelligence. And what I mean by this is that with the ants and the bees, we might get another form of intelligence which might circumnavigate our own intelligence in a way. So, see, the one bee, for instance, might work like one part of our body, whereas the other bee would be working like another part of our body, and so on and so forth. So when you have bees and ants who work as a collective, but they as individual, they don't really count, you will have the whole collective of the ants and the bees who will be the intelligence, whereas the simple bee or the simple ant might not be able to prove that. And since the ants and the bees, they have a lot of predators, they have also this thing that they must very often change their environments, change their places, and so on. They are even able to like cooperate with other insects and even get some knowledge to grow fungi. This might put them in a very good position to prove themselves to have a different kind of intelligence, which might not be the same kind of intelligence as we have, but it might be more a collective intelligence, which is very difficult to understand, but I think it's something we should even so still consider. So as a result, if we exclude the apes and other monkeys, I'm sure that the elephants, they would have very good chances to dominate not only the land but maybe even the seas, if they do it as we do it, for instance. And if we exclude the elephants, the whales might have a possibility to become very intelligent as well. And if we include a different kind of intelligence, a more collective intelligence, then I would say that the ants and the bees, they have a very good spot and also a very deserved high position to achieve that. Yeah, so that's it for today. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, support me also on Patreon, and join my forum, forum.planetalthistory.ga. Until next time on Planet Alt History.